have an idea. Are you interested? Now, if you get the shake of no or thumbs down, that makes it really clear. Okay, my voice is not going to be heard here. And there's nothing wrong with getting angry or frustrated or wanting to defend yourself. But if you get stuck there, that's a problem. And you may see this in your other family members. But what we want is the capacity, the ability to return to center, make meaningful connection with ourselves and others, where we can problem solve, where we can love, and where we can meaningfully connect in a conversation, just like you and I just did here, Elaine.
Welcome to the Farm Family Harmony Podcast. I'm Elaine Froese, Farm Family Coach, here with another episode full of transition tips, tactics, and sometimes hard truths to get harmony on your farm. Hi, folks. I'm Elaine Froese, Farm Family Coach. Really excited that you've joined me today. As you listen to many agricultural podcasts, you'll hear the hosts talk about having their own therapist. And today I'm really super happy to introduce my friend, Patricia Morgan, who's one of my speaker friends from Calgary, Alberta, who's also a counseling therapist. And she's just released an award-winning book, actually, called Return to Center by Patricia Morgan. And so we're going to talk about that book a little bit today, particularly in how it relates to the in-law factor in farming. So Patricia, you're no stranger to what rural life looks like in Alberta. And tell me about what was the motivation for you to write Return to Center?
Well, I'm always interested in learning, and in the world of therapy and psychology, we have come a long, long way from when I started therapy. Let me see, in 1980, I believe.
Okay, a while ago.
We've come a long, long way in understanding the interweave between the somatic, meaning the body, and the mind, body-mind connection. And we also understand more, in some ways, the medical terminology of what's going on with our nervous system. And so I'm always interested in elevating what I understand, doing it for myself and then my clients. And in 2020, I got introduced to what's called the Polyvagal Theory, which is a new understanding of stress. Mm-hmm. When we taught stress management, basically say you're either stressed or you're not stressed, and what to do to manage stress. But it's much more complicated than that from a physiological perspective. So I got interested, but I did get lost in a lot of the medical language. And after taking a number of training and reading the books on the Polyvagal Theory, I just started using ordinary language with my clients.
Which I love, by the way. I think that's the best reason your book won an award. So tell us the 3 stages.
Well, yes, so I just started using ordinary language. And so yes. Instead of saying, oh, your sympathetic system is activated, I said, oh, you're really charged. You're in that charged state. And my clients nodded their head, like anxious and angry and defending and fighting and fleeing. It's got a lot of energy to it. And then I started saying, instead of, oh, you're in the dorsal vagal, I started to say, oh, you're in that give up place, that give up state of hopelessness, of powerlessness, and suicide lives there, which is a dangerous place to be. Yeah. And again, but the nodding the head was much slower, like people living in molasses. It's a very discouraging, despaired place. Mm-hmm. And then when people were at the very best and came out of either that charged state, which is very high energy, or the low, very low energy, let's say if a plug had been pulled in their life system, I said, oh, you've returned to center. And I just went with my natural inclination, and before I knew it, I was making a workbook that they could kind of map out when they get triggered and go into the charge state, when they get triggered and go into that collapsed, give up state, and how they can support themselves in spending more time in the centered state.
Centered state. Well, and what I love about your cover, and we're doing this as an audio podcast, but also as a video, is that you're walking down the center line of a highway or a road somewhere with a forest, and you come back to center. But let's talk more about what your clients taught you, because I really liked the chart in your book when I read of what your clients said they would do when they got in that fight or flight kind of stage or that charge state, would set them off. So first of all, I'm taking this in the context of farm families. So you can imagine with the in-law factor, with young women or men coming into a farm family situation that they didn't grow up in, and they're not allowed to have a voice. And so my interest in having you as a therapist here today is practical tools for farm women and men, son-in-laws and daughter-in-laws who come into a farm business where they're getting triggered all the time because they're not allowed to have a voice. So I'd be curious, how would you help them return to center?
Well, not having a voice is really about other people not hearing them. It's not really about who they are, right?
Yeah, okay.
Oh, for me, and I grew up on a farm. I grew up with a mother who, if she heard my father screaming, "Mary," she dropped everything. It didn't matter.
Yeah, it was all about him.
Right. It didn't even matter whether she dropped the kids. Okay. Oh, number one that comes to mind for me is find people and spaces where you are heard. So that you actually get the experience of being validated. Okay. The second of all is in those spaces where you're not feeling heard, check whether you are spending time hearing what those main voices are saying. And you may experience the more you say, are you saying, and then paraphrasing or checking that you're understanding correctly. There are often spaces in the seeking to understand that we can then have our voice heard. Sense to you. So am I hearing that you're not seeing any solution to this problem, that there's not some other options, or am I hearing that there's nobody that has an extra pair of hands that could come and assist with that? Do you see what I'm saying with my questions? I'm sort of sneaking in some of my thoughts into that. This is what often therapists do, because we don't want to tell people directly what to do.
Okay. It's a therapist.
We want them to feel empowered.
Yeah.
So that's my second thought around.
So are you paraphrasing back? Am I hearing correctly?
Am I getting it right? No. I want to be part of this. I want to be part of understanding the problem, and I want to be part of the solution. So that's two. And number three might be, I have an idea. Are you interested? Now, if you get the shake of no or thumbs down, that makes it really clear. Okay, my voice is not going to be heard here.
So where is my voice going to be heard? Yeah. Well, this is a big deal to me, because I'm the author of the book Farming's In-Law Factor, # I am the brown egg. And a lot of, especially new partners and spouses coming into an existing family dynamic are very confused about, hey, this is totally different than the family that I came from. And I think also, Patricia, what's powerful about your book is you share your own personal stories, i.e. your mother, Mary, dropping everything for your very interesting father. But what also was helpful to me in reading your book was the section on page 62, when you talk about challenging unhelpful thought patterns. So I tell my coaching clients very often, you can change yourself, you can change your thoughts and your actions and your behavior, but other people have to choose to change theirs. So can you just explain what you mean by challenging triggering thoughts? Because all or nothing, black and white thinking, it's this way and it has to be this way. Like, I think that's really common with a lot of, especially in-laws, who find that they're in a family where it's either my way or the highway kind of thinking. So how do you change that?
Well, first step is we cannot change somebody else's thought patterns. That's
Okay.
theirs. So I give up on that. Absolutely give up on that. And it is kind of an archaic thinking. It also moves into right fighting. And right fighting is very easy to enter into. So little lines such as, okay, thank you for sharing your position with me. Thank you for sharing your opinion with me. Thank you for sharing your position with your stance with me. That's really, really clear. And investing in some other areas best you can of building emotional piggy bank, emotional
I call that an emotional bank account.
emotional bank account. So that at some point you have built enough equity that you can say, can I share with you my thoughts on that? And I really struggle with there's a right and a wrong way, or there's a bad way and a good way. I'm thinking maybe this other option. I'm just wondering. Now, because it's a very different position than right fighting. A couple of hints about having those conversations is, one, do not engage in those kinds of conversations when you're standing.
Oh, okay.
These are the kind of conversations you do sitting down. And I highly recommend for the new bride that's walking into this very tight, patterned patriarchy environment, do lots of pillow talk. Lots of pillow talk. So sweetie, I've been just wondering about what happened today, and I really want to be part of this family, and I really want for us to be partners. That day we said,
Yeah.
They'll have those pillow talks. And if it's a father-in-law that's, the main power
under decision maker.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about your dad, my father-in-law's childhood? What are some of his beliefs? What does he really value? What could I do for him that maybe he'd appreciate and maybe have some space, make more space for me? What are some of the talents and skills that I have that he might appreciate, because I just haven't found them yet? I feel like I'm getting criticized all the time, and I'm looking.
I think Brene Brown would say, could you just give me some idea of what your dad, what's the story he's telling himself? Like, what stories is he bringing into this farm scenario? Because we have another T-shirt, Patricia, that says, love does not read minds. So you have no idea, right? Unless, and when you say pillow talk, I know in the marriage course, they say, no hard conversations after 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night or whatever time you pick. But also you're talking about being shoulder to shoulder. I made the comment, I think, in a membership site this week about having some of these hard conversations in a moving truck, like in the front seat of a Chevy pickup, when the person can't jump out at 100 miles an hour. And you say, and you start with, I'm just curious, I've come into this family, I want to contribute, but I'm having a hard time finding out where I fit. Can you give me some idea what would be helpful? Right? Yeah. So another one that I really agree with you. The second one you talk about is catastrophic thinking or jumping to conclusions. So explain how that works. Worst scenario kind of stuff. I have to leave. This family's horrible. Yeah.
It's
every family thinks that they're alone, and there's newsflash. Everybody has issues. So
one little red flag goes up, and the whole house is burning down.
Yeah,
catastrophizing. So I'll tell you a quick story. I was married for maybe 5 years. Very gentle, sweet guy, and we had one of those crucial conversations where he ended up saying "F you, Patricia."
Oh,
I catastrophized. I decided our marriage was ended. I married him so I could be safe from that kind of talk.
Yes, because you do not want to be triggered. Because that was triggering for you, I would expect.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, catastrophizing often comes. Very good perception there. Catastrophizing often comes because of a trigger, right? Of a past story. So, so weeping and wailing and how could he? And I made this huge thing of it. Well, about 2 years later, he said it again. And I said, oh, when, honey? So that was not catastrophizing. Then we both laughed and had a...
Can you tell our listeners how long you've been married, Patricia? Please.
This long, you need 56 years.
Yes.
And we still do it almost every night of the week, almost on Monday, almost on Tuesday.
But I also know that you're a faithful attender of the Banff Marriage Conference. So
yes, hang on, Elaine. It's now called the Rocky Mountain Couples Retreat, and it's people come from all across the prairies. 100 couples in a beautiful ballroom, committing to one another. I love it when the farm couples come. Just beautiful. Yeah.
Well, that's a good shout out for farm couples to consider the Rocky Mountain Couples Retreat. Yeah.
Every March, take a look online. It's a beautiful experience.
Okay. So another thought pattern that's not helpful that I would think would help in-laws have a better voice is you call it jumping to conclusions or mind reading.
Yes, of course. So he shrugs his shoulders or he rolls his eyes and you decide he disapproves. So I think you said something, but we're not mind readers.
Love does not read minds. That's what my t-shirt says.
Right. Or the big sigh. So, that was the big sigh. What was that about, honey? What's going on for you? So, what's going on for you, honey, is a really, really important question. And also, I would suggest also for the couple, often the mother and father who are the patriarch and the matriarch of the family, just simply checking in with them now and then saying, well, I'm just curious, how are you doing?
Are you okay?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm a little cautious about are you okay? Because what? Sure. Guess what we do in our culture?
I'm fine.
I thank you.
Okay, bad answer. Okay.
We want
to say it again, though, Patricia, say it again. What's a better...
It comes with an attitude of curiosity.
Okay, I'm just curious. How are you?
I mean, if you say, how are you, then I would say, how are you really?
Okay.
You need to say this isn't a ritual. When we communicate, we have a lot of, oh, hi there. Oh, hi there.
Sort of default ones, right? Yeah, okay.
Exactly. So I would say, post, how are you? How are you doing today? How's it been for you today? What's been the best thing that happened for you today? I'd love to share with you the best thing that happened to me today. You're looking you're just a little tired to me. I'm just curious. How was your day? That kind of curiosity. I'm interested in.
And your intention is honest and your intention is curious, not judgment. And you actually do want to listen to the answer.
Yeah, because you want to be part of this whole legacy of the farm.
So talk about emotional reasoning. The example that you put in the book is, I feel like a failure, so I must be a failure. And that, for new daughter-in-laws, they just, Elaine, I can't take this anymore. Like, when is this going to change?
Right. And so that often comes from some piece of criticism, right? So I have a very tender spot about being stupid.
Yes.
It's my history. So just know that when you feel that pain, ouch, it typically is about you. And, I grew up in the farm. I don't know whether it's the same in this day and age, but there tends to be what I call a crustiness about farm culture. Kind of crusty. We're not supposed to get all mushy about the cow we eat, Yeah, so too much emotion gets to be kind of...
Well, and you and I have totally, I have very strong feelings about that, because I feel that expressing emotion, and know from research that expressing emotion is one of the best positive conflict behaviors that you can engage in for the rest of your life. That's what we want to help coach people towards, is healthy conflict resolution and emotional behavior.
And for those crusty people, To ask them what they feel is like asking them to go to war. So for the crusty folks, we could call them that. I would suggest you start with saying, so what do you think? And then what you do is you mirror.
Right.
So you're feeling really concerned about that. And
this is hard for you.
I'm hearing now. And then you can kind of, and if they kind of nod their head, and if they start to push away, okay, you're getting too tender to their heart. And you can go back to the thinking. So what are you thinking, George? Is
But tell me more what you're really thinking. I'd like to know what you're thinking. And you use the same word over and over again with different parts of the sentence. Okay. Very good practical tools, Patricia. The other one that you've got in your book is judging, name calling, and labeling. And like you said, well, stupid is a trigger for you.
Yes, that's right.
And I've written tons of articles about profanity on farms and protecting the culture of the farm, because my goal is for the crusty people to actually soften up and not be crusty anymore. But tell our listeners about what your conversation tools are around judging and name calling and labeling, because that's also another critical thinking pattern that's not helpful.
Right. Yeah. So for every adult that says I'm stupid or I'm lazy or I'm unlovable or I'm undeserving, all those I am endings, somebody when they were a child said you are. The you are, when we say to another person, age, you are, and you are an effing asin and stuff.
Yeah.
And actually, at one of our speaker conventions, I had a man, you and I both know him, who called me some names. One time, I moved his briefcase to sit next to a friend for a few minutes, and then the conference started, and it was not convenient to suddenly move. Anyway, it's you and I could talk about that another time.
Oh, fine.
When we do this you are stuff, we are playing God. God said, I am the way, I am the light.
Yeah.
The you are statements go so deep and become, the younger you are, the more unconscious you are, the more they become the I am. So for years I walked around with this felt like a big label on my forehead that said, I am stupid. Well, I am not a stupid.
No, you haven't asked him. No, you're not.
So you can turn it around by asking that question, am I a whatever? So you want to cut that out. And if somebody calls you a name, what probably is the most effective is to say, I hear you're feeling angry. Can you tell me about what's going on for you?
Or I would say, wow, you're really upset. And I actually like to lean in. You are really upset. Yeah.
Smart of you, Elaine. The word wow, if you don't know what to say, the word wow can be used to express at least
all kinds of things.
Emotions. Yeah.
A good word to pull out of your head.
So you can always say wow, and you can be prepared for wow. I avoid the word upset because it's not specific enough.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
So think about the primary emotions that babies have. And anger is a very common one, specifically for males, because in our culture, males have been supported in expressing anger. And we have many, many leaders who lead with anger. Very clear anger. Underneath anger, because anger is a secondary emotion.
Yes, agreed.
Is fear.
Yep.
Fear. Or, fear, scared, and sometimes hurt.
Well, and Dr. Allender, because I use Dr. Allender's work for this all the time. I use anger, I agree, totally. It's secondary emotion. And when I'm teaching farmers in fairness workshops, I use hurt. Are you hurt? Yes. Are you afraid? But for young farmers and for in-laws, are you frustrated? So Allender turned it down to 3 things: hurt, fear, and frustration. And when I talk back to farm families and say, what was the most value that, Elaine, it's just so good to think about anger not being what it really is. And then I start thinking, is this person hurt? Is this person afraid? And older people on farms, Patricia, with the value of farms and the amount of money it costs to live and all of these things about income stream and housing and fairness, they are afraid of a lot of things.
Yeah.
But then, fortunately, they don't have the thought patterns or the communication tools yet.
Right.
Unpack and express that in a way that doesn't, get them flying off with labeling and name calling and judging and all these other horrible things that you write about in your book. And then the last one we'll just unpack here as we work towards this. I mean, I could speak to you for 3 hours. This is just fabulous. Like, the other thing is, and this is a really high thing I observe in farm families, perfectionism. These are the thought patterns, perfectionism or the need to be right. And in certain cultures that I work with, they have a high degree of need to be right. And I had a man once literally say to me, as he was giving me my check for what the work I did with him, he said, Elaine, just tell me I was right. He actually said that. Yeah. So what do you do? What do you do when someone has a high need to be right? Because a lot of in-laws are up against this, Patricia.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, a lot of people grew up that if they made a mistake, they got punished.
Yeah. And you're just not to make mistakes here.
There's a total unconscious terrified. It's worse than fear. Terrified of being wrong. The energy that goes on in families, energy that goes on in couples for one to be right, to make the other wrong. And you know what? There's some simple options. You can say, I see you're right for you, and I love you so much, I'm not going to put in any effort to make you wrong so that I can be right. So I'm quite willing to agree. You're right for you. And then you do have a decision to, if you are involved, you're putting yourself at risk or you're violating your own values, whether you go in another direction and say, well, yeah, that sounds right for you, but it's not right for me.
Well, and the other thing that you've put in your book here is also having self-compassion.
Huh?
I love the practical tools that you talk about: eating chocolate, having a bath, lying down in nature, doing yoga, calling a friend, making a music playlist. And so, listeners, this has been a fabulous, very practical, very helpful conversation, Patricia, for me to spread out to the in-law factor, to the people who are calling me all the time and have been calling me for the last 10 years since we wrote the book, Farming's In-Law Factor, in 2014. And now in 2020, you've written Return to Center. I have a funny story about your book because I got it off of Amazon first and the package came empty. And I went, oh my God. And so the post office kindly stamped it as damaged goods, and I ordered again, and Amazon came through the second time. And what you need to know, folks, is that Patricia Morgan obviously understands the culture of agriculture. She grew up on a farm. She practices in Calgary, Alberta, and she's been married for over 50 years. So, hey, this is a woman who has a lot of life experience and a lot of good research knowledge. And I think, Patricia, what I love so much about the work you've done and continue to do is that you were able to take the study of the vagal theory that was very complicated for people to hear. And she, as a professional speaker, when you were doing your workshops, you drained it or you drilled it down to better language. And so just repeat for our listeners again as we close the 3 stages and the stage that you want to work towards being.
All right. So I call them states, emotional states.
Emotional states.
Right. So just pay attention to whether you get triggered into the chart state. And for it, you want to slow it down, like putting on the brake. Take a few deep breaths. And the other one, the state that other people tend to get triggered into, is the give up state. And there we've lost energy and we want to add a little energy, whether that's turning on the television, turning on your playlist, reaching out to a friend. And there's nothing wrong with giving up. There's a time to do it. It's when we get stuck there. And there's nothing wrong with getting angry or frustrated or wanting to defend yourself. But if you get stuck there, that's a problem. And you may see this in your other family members. But what we want is the capacity, the ability to return to center, where we make meaningful connection with ourselves and others, where we can problem solve, where we can love, and where we can meaningfully connect in a conversation, just like you and I just did here, Elaine.
Right. And so farmers, if you're listening to this in your combine, your tractor, or walking down a quiet road, because that's where you get grounded to get back to center, thank you so much for joining us today. Please share this far and wide. Patricia also mentions in her book, we talked about suicide ideation. And in Canada, we have the Do More Ag Foundation. We have the National Farmers Mental Health Alliance. We have the Manitoba Farmers Wellness Program in Manitoba. Do your best now and be proactive about finding how you can reach out to get mental health support, because it's not healthy to be in that down and depressed state. And there are possibly things that you need to let go of. And hey, if you've never had a counselor or a therapist, you can also go to betterhelp.com and find a therapist who will work with you over Zoom. So, Patricia, thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending the time today. You've been always a great mentor and inspiration to me because of your clarity. You speak very directly and very practically, and that's, of course, what farmers love to hear, something that they can actually put into practice. So blessings on your journey, and be well, and thank you so much for your time today. So, folks, please share this far and wide, and order Patricia Morgan's book, Return to Center. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.